Got another wonderful email from my new friend, Tracy Herford Crew. Excellent. This is on the Facebook page of Lucy Letby, Moment of Truth. This concerns something called Legionella, and it's been known since 1976, also called Legionnaire's disease, and I will put in the description the history of this disease. The reason I remember it so well, first of all, it happened in, this was all well known since 1976. My parents were both extremely active in the American Legion organization, which is an organization for veterans. My mom was active in the auxiliary. My father was in, who was actually a veteran in the organization itself. I am so grateful that they neither one were conventionaires, because they could have both succumbed to this and died from this. So they were very, very active on the local level, and thank God they were not active on the national level. Otherwise, I would have been an orphan as a teenager. And again, I'll include in the description. It's a really good forensic investigation that went on that discovered a new disease. And basically, it's caused by bird poo getting into rooftop air conditioning systems. And this was all, again, since this was found in the late 70s, my understanding that all air conditioning units throughout the world should have been changed. And there is some concern, whether or not the Countess of Chester had that also. So again, thanks, shout out, and one big meow from the Empress to Tracy Herford Crew. So let's read this. When things go wrong in the neonatal unit, death unexpected, the normal reaction is to look for environmental contaminants. Test the known sources, do epidemiological studies, find the source within the environment or with advanced infection and virology panels post-mortems to isolate the infection. Many infants showed signs of infection. That's a normal reaction, expected behavior, not at the counter of Chester. Instead, they went straight to Lucy. In 2015 and 16, internal governance papers and CQC inspection notes recorded serious environmental problems on the NICU at the Countess of Chester. Problems that were known at the time, not identified years later. This is what was written in the records. Poor ventilation formally recorded. The notes documented. Opposed business case ×2. Poor ventilation. Ventilation listed on the risk register. Ventilation described as an environmental issue of endurance risk. The neonatal unit not achieving standards. This means ventilation was recognized as inadequate. A business case to fix it was raised more than once. Both attempts were opposed. The risk therefore remained unresolved. This is contemporaneous estates and governance documentation. Environmental infection risk noted. The same notes include a clear entry. Environment Pseudomonas. Monitoring is described as ongoing and emerging risk, with records noticed as consistent over the previous year. Pseudomonas is a water and environment associated organism. Its presence is widely used in healthcare estates as a marker of environmental and water system vulnerability, not just a standalone infection issue. Where there is a Pseudomonas, there's a higher risk factor for Legionella, that's Legionnaire's disease, and other pathogens. Legionella especially has been completely omitted from the conversation at Chester, despite a major local rise in infections in 2015. Known estate risk factors. AHUs, condensate, and roof level water tanks. Please tattoo that on your brain. From an estates and infection control perspective, several water recognized Legionella risk factors are relevant when ventilation and environmental infection risks are present. Legacy condensate systems. Older air handling systems often produce standing condensate. If drainage is incomplete or poorly maintained, this creates conditions favorable to waterborne organisms. air handling units, also called AHUs. AHUs that mix fresh and recirculated air, particularly when ventilation performance is reduced, can allow moisture and aerosols to persist rather than being effectively removed. Roof level water tanks and associated pipework. Water storage tanks, especially older installations, are known Legionella risk factors if temperature control, turnover, or maintenance is suboptimal. Their proximity to ventilation intakes increases the importance of adequate airflow and dilution. These are established risk factors in the NHS estates guidance. Again, this was known back in the 1970s. This case, called Legionnaire's disease, gained worldwide attention and actually sparked a movement to look into environment, and especially air conditioning units and other units, especially them that are unprotected and on a rooftop. They did not imply failure on their own, but when combined with poor ventilation, they materially increase environmental risk. Why ventilation matters on neonatal unit. Neonatal units are expected to meet strict ventilation standards, HTM guidance, including adequate air exchanges per hour, continuous fresh air supply, effective dilution and removal of airborne contaminants, stable airflow and pressure control, systems capable of operating safely under continuous demand. When ventilation is poor, aerosols linger, humidity rises, environmental organisms persist. Risk increases significantly for extremely vulnerable immunocompromised infants. Incubators and bedside filters do not replace room level ventilation. A system under strain. Alongside ventilation and infection risks, the same records describe staffing gaps, sickness pressures. Remember, I remember this, that a lot of staff called in sick around these times. Please tattoo that on your brain. There were mentions in Lucy's text messages that people were calling in sick. Now, she thought it was related to the pressure on the unit, the stress. Maybe it could have been related to the ventilation. Use of bank and agency staff. Units operating under endurance risk and standards not being met. Taken together, this describes a fragile system, not isolated issues. The key point, environmental risks on the neonatal unit were recognized, documented, escalated, and unresolved. They form part of the context in which care was being delivered. All very interesting, really, because despite all the nonsense on Netflix, Lucy Letby was convicted of killing babies in a pattern of almost perfectly decreasing frequency towards the colder months, before warming up to her murderous ways after a solid 5-month winter break from it. A bit like, Legionella or any other hospital bacteria, such as Pseudomonas. Lucy murdered infants in a frequency pattern that matched the rise of any lethal infection known to hospital. Yet there is no independent infection sampling. A failing hospital billing ran with legacy heating, cooling towers, water storage tanks on the roof. Which what do birds do? They're on a rooftop. Lucy's MO, mimicking a seasonal outbreak, is a fascinating reach, almost never discussed in any depth, despite the absolute insane level of precision we are expected to believe she carried out these attacks. Has no one actually looked at that and went, hold on a second, isn't that weird? She murders like a war-born infection. So weird, right? I mean, it's impressive. While actually doing the job of an ICU nurse, you would normally expect Netflix to fully capitalize on the utter genius skill of developing a serial killer vibe that matches the MO of a seasonal bacteria. The bacteria seasonal outbreak, possibly waterborne, linked to heat, source standing water, pipes, and storage tanks. Our answer, once in a lifetime serial killer. No history, no witness, no motives not believable. Medicine bastardized to fit the story. They are about to demolish the answer. March. The evidence will be gone. In other words, I think they're planning on destroying that building. Guys, we got to save that building so they can do forensic testing on this. Otherwise, when they demolish it, it's all gone. Honestly. And here's the reference. Now, okay, look at the rise here. Look at the rise here. Of all, this is 2013, 14, and 15. Okay? Interesting. All right? Look at this. Look at this graph here. Convicted baby death and collapses. The murder is in red. The attempted murder is in blue. Look at the dates here. All right? Look at Lucy convicted of attacking babies. Again, look at the dates here. Look at the dates here. Fascinating find. Again, thank you, Tracy. I'm seeing the beginnings of a long friendship. Wasn't that the last line in some famous movie? I'll have to see if I can find that clip and attach that too. So again, that movie was Casablanca. I'm gonna find that. So again, thank you, and a big meow and a big yowl from me. Bye-bye.